Let's start this off with speaking with Duncan Buchanan, who's Policy Director of the Road Haulage Association. Good afternoon to you, Duncan.
Good afternoon, Ian. How are you?
Very well, sir. Nice to have you with us. So we've got there's a big old list of things that could go wrong. You guys are at the cutting edge of this, of course. The Road Haulage Association, the people that will be almost the barometer of whether this no-deal lark turns out to be Armageddon or whether everything turns out to be absolutely fine and dandy. What's the sense at the moment from a haulage perspective, Duncan?
I think one of the problems we have to do with Brexit is really this whole idea that everything is either going to be perfect or everything is going to be Armageddon. I think what we have to be realistic about is that we are dealing with a mountain of regulatory change. And this mountain of regulatory change will create friction, will slow vehicles down, will result in tailbacks on the M20 and what have you. The reality is we do not know which goods will not get through. We do not know exactly what the impacts are going to be on day two, if you like. So there are many, many, many questions that need to be asked. But what we do know, and the preparation that is going on and has been going on for a long time, is that we have to prepare the importers and exporters to get them ready. And this is where we have a huge problem. The information that has been provided by government, by HMRC in particular, to help traders prepare has been completely inadequate. At times, it's been incomprehensible and incomplete. So we have a lot of things to do in the next 7 or 8 weeks, and one of the most important things is to get traders ready so that they can get their goods ready with complete paperwork, because it's only with complete paperwork you can cross a border.
So you may be an independent you might be a one-man band. You've got your own truck. You're freelance, as it were. You take stuff through for other companies, but you need their paperwork to be in order to get through Dover, Calais, wherever it happens to be.
That's absolutely right. You can't get through the border, or you won't be able to get through the border without a complete set of paperwork. At the moment, for most cases, most people do not know what that complete set of paperwork involves and what needs to be done.
So at the moment, there's no paperwork, is that right? You might have just have a list of what's on your truck. It's, X, Y, Z, X boxes, whatever it happens to be. But it's pretty simple stuff.
Yes, in essence, it's no more difficult to deliver something to Düsseldorf than it is to deliver to Dorking. What you do is you have an operator who's licensed to carry the goods. They need to have a docket, which is called a CMR note, which basically says you have a truck full of stuff. And away you go. It really isn't much more complicated than that. Everyone has to have driving licenses. Everyone has to have a passport. Everyone has to have the sort of things you need to cross a border.
Sure.
But in simple terms, it's really routine. All of those things are still going to be in place that we have to do now. It's just the scale and magnitude of all of the other stuff that needs to be done.
So if I was delivering my PlayStations to Düsseldorf and I head down to Dover, then the boys and girls at Dover are going to want to see something more than my CMR note from 1st of November.
In essence, to cross the border, you will have to have a movement reference number or be formally in transit, effectively in a customs bond, to cross the border. You will not be allowed into France if you don't have a pre-declaration of the import from their point of view, or the goods are in a form of bond. The vehicle can be bonded in what's called transit. Both of those things will work. You have to be in one place, one case or another.
Okay. And people would do that via which government department would be dealing with that? The Department of Transport or Home Office? Where does it come from?
Most of these requirements relate to HMRC or the French or Dutch or wherever equivalent. So these are basically customs processes. I'm keeping it fairly simple because there's a lot more things to do with special types of goods, excise goods, fresh food, that sort of thing. So they actually add other layers of complexity, but every shipment will have to have an export customs clearance done and an import customs clearance done on the other side.
So if you had half a dozen lorries that didn't have that on a daily basis, that would begin to take a toll, that would begin to slow the process down. That at the moment is very slick and fast, and you would eventually end up with the worst scenario. Talking about the worst scenario, where those trucks aren't just waiting at the port of Dover, they're actually waiting on the M20.
Yes, well, this is what we're expecting, and the government has been preparing for under what they call Operation Brock, which you mentioned Yellowhammer before. They're preparing to be able to hold and control the flow of lorries into Dover and the Channel Tunnel. There's also other ports are available if you want them around the country. It's not just about the Dover Straits. We tend to focus on that because it's the big numbers, but Holyhead is a serious issue, and so are other ports around the country.
Sure. So this would apply across the board.
Yes.
What is your instinct on this, Duncan? I know lots of people I know will get in touch and go, this isn't going to happen, people will have the paperwork, nobody's going to die, everything will be just fine. I mean, you're at the cutting edge of this argument. You understand this. These are, your members that will have these concerns, etc. Are you expecting there to be delays? Are you expecting Operation Brock, which for those who don't know is the sort of contraflow system that's been set up on the M20, etc.? It's in place, isn't it? It's there. It wasn't taken away really from the last time we thought this was going to happen. Are you expecting that to come to life, as it were?
Yes. In short, we're not expecting the mass of traders to be ready. There's another factor that people need to understand here. The number of customs clearances that are going to have to be done is going to increase by about a factor of 5. That means that at the moment, let's say there's 10,000 customs clearance personnel, there's going to need to be 50,000 to do the same amount of work.
Wow.
It's an enormous... I just invented those numbers, by the way, in terms of the number of staff, but I know that the factor is actually a factor of 5.
Okay.
And
so you need 5 times more the staff to deal with this.
You'll need 5 times. You'll need to do 5 times as many customs clearances. And one of the problems traders are going to have, bear in mind most of them haven't even started looking at this, is they need to actually secure a customs clearance agent to do the customs clearance work, because you need the links with customs in terms of IT systems and what have you. There is a huge amount of paperwork change that people are going to need to go through. It is a massive change. Now, what we don't know is exactly what goods are not going to get through, what goods are going to be held. There's a whole range of things we're uncertain about.
In terms of where it goes next, I mean, is there anything that could happen between now and then that could alleviate your concerns? I mean, Grant Shapps, as we mentioned at the beginning, talks about a £30 million investment into the ports. Does that touch the sides?
The most important investment we can make at the moment is an investment in information for traders. Traders are the people who generate the paperwork that is required for everything. Without them having the right paperwork, the road hauliers don't have the right paperwork, the customs agents don't have the right paperwork, no one has it. So it's that we need. The other thing we need is, and hopefully some of the money that Grant Shapps was talking about yesterday is going to be invested in transit facilities, so that effectively goods can travel inland and be customs cleared at inland destinations. That would be incredibly helpful, but we only have several weeks to do this, and so the bottleneck is very clear. There's a long way to go.
Okay, Duncan. Great to talk. Thank you, sir. Duncan Buchanan, who's Policy Director of the Road Haulage Association.